Hey Cesar, how's it going? Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh,
Hey, George.
good, good.
Yes.
You can hear me perfectly?
Yes.
Okay,
It
good,
sounds
good.
really good.
Okay, good, good. Well, good to have you. As you know, this is a recorded session. You went and filled out our paperwork, and just so you know, my professor will see this video and my supervisor. But once I'm graded with my school, they're gonna delete it, so you don't have to worry about it being leaked on YouTube or anything like that. So this is just it's just a formality for me as a student. It helps me out so I can get a grade and they can evaluate me. So my professor's gonna see this video and just hear your voice and see how I interact with you. And it's just for him to see and so he can evaluate me and give me my grade. That's about it.
Okay. Yeah, no
Okay.
problem.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Okay. I can hear you a little bit low. Can you hear me though? Right?
Yeah. It just cuts out all of a sudden a little bit, but most of everything you said earlier, I could hear.
Okay. Okay. Good. Yeah. Just let me know if you can't see me, if I warp or anything, or if the internet is spotty. Just let me know and I'll see. We'll stop so I can get connected back with you.
Okay.
Okay.
No problem.
So I wanted to ask you, how are you doing this week? How has your week been?
It's been really surprisingly things have gotten good for me. I finally received a job offer at the beginning of the week, so I'm done being unemployed, which was over a year long. So I'm really glad I'm going back to the workforce now.
Good.
It's been too long. It's been too long doing house chores.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's good. How did that feel? Just you got an offer or did you apply or what happened?
Yeah, so I applied earlier in the year, and the company I applied for was waiting for a contract to come through. So they I had to wait, almost, what is that? So I interviewed in January, in middle of January, and I finally got the offer this Monday. So
Oh
it was
wow.
a
Oh,
little it was a little nerve wracking, like thinking maybe they weren't gonna hire me, but no, it's just because it took a while for them to finally win this contract. So I'm very relieved now that
okay.
it's about time.
So when you say relieved, like have you been just has this been like just a thought that's been like ruminating for a while or like you just been thinking about it
So
every day or is it just
I mean, it's been a little bit more lately, I guess. But,
mhm.
it's been more circulating in my mind because my work revolves around um, oil prices.
Okay.
So when oil prices are bad, my job availability is, there's it's harder for me to find work when oil is low in price.
Right.
But when oil is very good in price, it's supposedly supposed to be easier for me. So that's why it was a little nerve wracking because I was seeing the oil get good and get higher in price, and I still didn't have a job. So it was getting me nervous. Like, is oil gonna be good in price, and I'm still not gonna find a job?
I
So
see.
that's why it was nerve wracking because, like I
Okay.
said, that's how my job revolves.
Okay.
My line of work.
Right, oil and gas, from what I
Yes.
remember. Okay, yeah, because last time we talked, at the beginning, we talked about your concerns, that you've noticed that you get a little anxious at certain times, or you're being a little bit more self aware of it. Um, you just don't know how the gravity of it, how it can, become or compromise you. But I'm looking at your assessments and your assessment of the Beck anxiety inventory. I have it here, and so one thing that I noticed is that you fear the one of the things that I want to locate here that I look at are the twos that you have moderately where it wasn't pleasant at times, and I just wanted to see if that was kind of what you were I guess reflecting on as far as like the fear of the worst happening. Was that kind of what you put here? You put like a two for the fear of worst happening. Was that kind of related to the job or was it something else?
Yeah, so the twos I put were, I mean, it was a combination. It was a combination of what's going on right now with the world, with this
Okay.
whole Ukraine issue,
Okay.
and and also my job, right? So it started. I guess I started getting a little bit more concerned,
Mm-hmm.
just because, number one, I mean, this is a big deal war-wise issue that hasn't happened in a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
also the fact that, okay, well, if inflation keeps going up and all of a sudden oil is going up and I don't have any work
Mm-hmm.
to, a lot of stuff, like that affects me. That affects me, I guess.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's why I had more, more concerns about that. I mean, prior to this whole Ukraine thing, I would have probably said my numbers were a little lower.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I wasn't employed, I felt like, um, I just didn't feel as nervous because it seemed like everything was more predictable of what's going on, just around, just in society. But now with this whole conflict in Europe, it's unpredictable. We don't know how far it's going to escalate and everything. So it
Right.
just puts me to think sometimes. I guess it's when you turn on the TV to kind of see what's going on, and sometimes I feel like instead of finding out what was going on, I ended up finding out, but I ended up getting a little bit more nervous because things didn't get better. Every
Right.
time I watch the TV, it seems like things have gotten worse than where they were the last time
Okay.
I watched the TV.
I see. Okay, so there is a so like on a scale from 0 to 100, 100 being okay, so like anxiety really is like what we talked about, like the flight or fight, like basically 100 would be like a dog's chasing you, so do you put up your dukes and fight a dog, or do you run from a dog, right? You flee, because you can't compete against well, it depends what type of dog, but let's just say it's a big dog. um so if you were to look at before the whole Ukraine war, and you were thinking about work, how was your anxiety then, like throughout that month? Was it like a 50 being like, in the middle, or was it like close to like dog being chased, or not really, you didn't really notice it as much?
So before the whole Ukraine thing, I would say that my anxiety was lower.
Mm.
I wouldn't even say 50%. I'd probably say about 25%
Okay.
before the whole war.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
because I mean, I also have investment in stocks and
Mm-hmm.
investments like that. So those were doing very well before the whole war. So even though I'm not employed, that was doing fairly well. So I wasn't too concerned about stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I like to be working, but I'm still doing okay with my investments, so it's not a
Right.
big problem. But after the war, since I still wasn't employed and the investments took a dive,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started. Yeah, my numbers went up pretty good, pretty significantly.
Okay.
I would say at least doubled from where I was, just because no employment, no investments are taking a hit. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's going to happen. Things are getting worse.
Okay.
But obviously, with this whole offer of my job this week, it's gone down again. So
Okay.
it's not. I wouldn't. Not. It's not to the point where it was before, but
Mm-hmm.
it is a little bit better,
Right.
just
Okay.
because I have one less, you know, one less obstacle, or one obstacle that I finally overcame, which is getting employment.
Okay. I see. Okay. So employment, from what I'm understanding what you're saying, I mean, let me just kind of gather a little bit, because I'm kind of seeing a pattern here of, one was employment, your anxiety was not noticeably too much, but then after the war it was. But when you talk about the war, you talk about the market and your stocks and everything. So I see the general scheme, the theme that you have is when it's finances, like we discussed, right? Previously, that
Yes.
finances get you a little, that's your, in a sense, your trigger, in a sense that kind of gets you that mood of what you're saying here on your test and your scales, that it starts initiating it, right? You start feeling it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So finances is, yes. It's I mean, like I said, if there's security, I don't get nervous. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
see there's everything's like I said, I wasn't employed, but at least my investments were doing fairly well, so I
Okay.
wasn't too nervous. But
Okay.
when it seems like everything's going downhill with investments, yes, that's my I guess you could say my anxiety levels start to increase.
Okay. Now let me ask you this question: how has there ever, so I see that you also put here unable to relax, and then just nervousness. So these all seem kind of themes that you kind of catch yourself, I'm understanding that it's something more exterior and not something that just, well, we can go into explore into that more. But was there ever another situation where you can kind of feel like the anxiety, kind of like what's going on with the Ukraine? Anything that's happened to you before too when you were taking this assessment? Like, just another example that you probably had a hyped up anxiety.
Um, I think so. The other things that maybe trigger me to get a little bit more anxious about things is
Mm-hmm.
when people who are close to me are maybe having a hard time. So,
Okay.
for instance, like if my wife,
Mm-hmm.
if she has a great day at work, like she comes back and she's very happy and it was excellent and everything went well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that my anxiety significantly decreases because
Mm-hmm.
I see it and I feel happy. Like it's kind of like if I guess you could say it's kind of current happy energy transfers to me. But if I see her, very frustrated with work, very upset, she had a bad day, something went wrong, and in
Mm-hmm.
a way my anxiety goes up too because I feel like um, she shouldn't have to go through that, or sometimes I feel like bad because sometimes I feel like she shouldn't be the one really going through that. I should be the one going through that by working.
Okay.
She shouldn't have to.
So
Right.
okay. So from what I'm understanding is you're saying, because you say a lot of should. Do you feel like, so do you feel kind of guilty that she's feeling that and not as opposed to you feeling it?
So I feel like I'm very happy that she's able to go to work and basically do what she does. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel like she should be the one basically like when things going bad, she should be able to take a break, and I should be the one burdening that problem instead with work. You
Okay.
see, you kind of see what I'm saying. Like I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes I feel guilty. I guess I feel guilty that why she's taking up the front of stress for work when
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not right now with but I want to because I feel like it's a partnership. It's like we're in it together. So I
Right.
should be also going through this with her.
Okay.
But
I see. Okay. So it boils down to what I'm understanding is also, like you're saying, you're not working right now, and for her having either a bad day or anything, it's because it's in a sense what you're saying. From what I understood is that it's your fault that she's experiencing that, and if she could just not feel that by you working, is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's all my fault, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I was working, maybe she could take. She wouldn't have to work so hard. I guess
Okay.
you know.
Was
So
there?
I'm so
Go
I'm
ahead.
hoping now with this employment that basically that's gonna happen, that she won't have to work as hard and it'll be a lot less stressful for her too.
Okay. Can you remember a time when she felt? Uh, do you remember a time that when you were working that she didn't feel anxiety at all? Like, so when you start working, she'll never feel anxiety again.
Um. So when when I work, typically, she. I mean, I've noticed that sometimes when I had moments of not working, she would have to pick up extra shifts, like
Mm-hmm.
extra working days.
Okay.
So things would get more stressful for her. I feel like she had less time to relax, and she
Okay.
would get a little bit. But when I work, she's able to take a little bit more time off, I guess,
Okay.
and that's why I see her happier and everything typically when because
Mm-hmm.
she has less that she has to balance.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah,
I see. Okay. So yeah, I'm seeing, like I said, like the theme is, yeah, the markets, the finances, the what we've discussed before about that. It's a common theme for you to. That's kind of your trigger and your finances again, because your partner has to work a little bit more, and then when you see her struggle, you feel like you're kind of the guilt of that. Like that's you feel the guilt of she shouldn't have to work more shifts or anything like that because of me not
right,
working. Okay.
right. I mean that's how I feel. I feel like. exactly. That's exactly
Okay.
right. It's more of a guilty, this. If I feel like if I was working,
Mm-hmm.
things would be better for her.
Okay. Is there ever moments that you do feel like you overcome your anxiety? Like, what is it that you kind of do? Like, so you feel the anxiety, like, say, for example, like when you see the war of the Ukraine and you're watching it on TV, what happens afterwards once you're done watching what you're doing? Like, do you just sit with the anxiety? Does it, prolong throughout the whole day? Or do you just notice it's momentarily? What is it that you feel?
Um. So. I mean, I've noticed that like if I watch this stuff, sometimes I just start to think like, um, how is this gonna affect things in the future? How is this gonna trickle down? How can this and sometimes it's you just start coming up with different scenarios, and sometimes
Mhm.
none of the scenarios even happen, right?
Okay.
But that's why I think typically when I start doing that, I do catch myself. I do catch that I'm maybe following it, uh, falling. I'm sorry, not following. I'm falling into a endless loop.
Okay.
And the good thing is I snap out of it. Like typically,
Hmm.
what I'll do is I say, okay, I got things I gotta do. I gotta get this done. So I snap myself out of it by going and doing something I gotta get done. And I notice that when I get things start doing that,
Hmm.
I feel like I forget
Okay.
about the situation because that's just how I am. I When I focus on something, I forget about the other stuff.
Okay.
So it helps me snap out of my endless loop of maybe giving myself anxiety.
Okay. Okay, I see. So you basically save it for a later day, or you just forget about it and it doesn't come back until you initiate again against, I guess, like in the scenario of what's going on in the Ukraine, you watch the news again and then it hypes up again. You start seeing it
Right,
again.
right.
Okay.
So that's yeah.
Okay.
It's
Or your spouse comes home and then she's had a bad day and then you're just like it goes back up, right?
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
if she had a bad day, if she had, it goes a little bit up, but
Uh-huh.
we talk it through, and then we start talking about something else. About I realized that we kind of snap out of it when we start talking about something that's not even something completely different. Something
Okay.
about I don't know family, something that happened with our family that
Mhm.
or some joke, something funny, and we just that like helps us or helps me
Mhm.
um, forget about certain situations.
I get it. Okay, so talking through it with your spouse, it gets you through it. Like you have a moment and everything, and then you guys communicate and talk about it, and just talk about what's going on, and it kind of makes it milder.
Oh,
You get through it.
we'll talk about what's going on a little bit, but
Uh huh.
sometimes we just on purpose start talking about something else,
Okay.
just because just so that we don't bring that that anxiety up again.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Okay.
but yeah, so for me, surprisingly, when I've realized that for me, when I forget things the most, I mean, when I really can finally calm down,
Mm-hmm.
is if I guess that's why at home, now that I'm thinking about it, that's why sometimes I get myself real busy, like with doing things. Like I
Uh
do a
huh.
lot of, if I feel frustrated, I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of um, labor work, like
Okay.
picking stuff in the yard or fixing stuff in the garage. I've noticed that I get to the point where I get tired,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll like take a shower or something, and then I'll just fall asleep. And I feel like that's to me is the moment when I completely just forget everything.
Okay.
But I think I do it. I think I tire myself out on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
because if I'm not tired, I'll be thinking.
Okay. I see. It's a disconnect. It gets you. You get so tired that you get disconnected from it.
Correct. I get so tired that I don't have energy to think. Because sometimes if I think too much, I feel like I might go into an endless thought, and I might end up scaring myself in the process.
Right. You go, like you said, you go into an endless loop.
Yes.
Okay. So have you ever had an endless loop and you really can't get out of it, or do you just
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I think that's why I've learned how to kind of I've learned with time with experience how to deal with this because in the past I have been very stressed at work and I worked long hours, long time, and I never really took a break and I would get home and I would be thinking about stuff
Mm-hmm.
and I did somewhat fall into like a small anxiety depression.
Okay.
Um, but when I came back out of it, I learned how to I learned where my breaking points were. So
Mm-hmm.
now, like I said, I try not to reach those points. And typically, the way I do that is by um, knowing when it's time to, change to a different employer.
Okay.
You know,
Okay. So from what I'm gathering is you've had a system of um, where you were describing an endless loop that you had of anxiety, and it seems like it's also because of your employment. So it was the one you had that you learned from was from an employment,
right,
from a career
right.
that you okay. So right now, like, you're unemployed, so you've had like gaps of unemployment. So is that kind of like, I guess, a way that you've been dealing with it? Like, you stopped for a
Yes,
while, you just, is that what I'm
yes,
understanding? Okay.
yes, yes. That's exactly like
Mm-hmm.
my employment, my being in oil and gas, it's a very stressful environment, and
Mm-hmm.
I've realized that you know I work hard, I do what I need to do, um, but at certain points when things start getting overwhelming, I used to just keep going,
Okay.
and that's when I had my first issue. But I learned a lot from them, and I learned basically to at some point when I start reaching those feelings again,
Mm-hmm.
is when it's time to basically take, um, a leave, an absence, um,
Okay. So
and basically like recharge.
okay. So let me ask you this. Do you mind diving into like how you felt? Like, how did you know that you were in a, not in a loop? Not, I mean, I understand that you were in a loop, but like,
So,
how did you feel like you were like, whoa, this is not a norm for me when you learned that lesson?
so whenever I start not being able to sleep, that's when I know
Okay.
I'm reaching my limit. I
Okay.
didn't know that the first time. So the first time I did have a lot of like insomnia, but I kept on marching along, kept on working, kept on. But I started noticing that things started getting worse because I wasn't sleeping, and
Okay.
worse and worse. So now I don't let myself get to that point. Now I've
Mm-hmm.
realized that if I ever start, I mean, if it's like one day or whatever, because
Mm-hmm.
something happens, it's not a big deal. But if I start noticing that it's becoming a pattern, that's when I start basically saying, okay, it's time for me to start thinking about how I'm gonna take some time or move to a different a different company because
Mm-hmm.
that's not normal. And I've realized that I can't function under insomnia
Mm-hmm.
patterns.
Okay. Okay. Good.
But
I
but yeah,
understand.
but I mean that's like I said, that's how I've learned how to cope with it.
Okay.
But yeah.
So is that looking at your assessment as well? I also saw here that you have a fear of losing control. Is that kind of the control of work or the control of just of your career? Is that
It's
kind of
more the control of my of me. Like I said, the biggest thing I think I get concerned with is when I can see, like, when I'm stressed a little bit, I feel like I still have control. It's just normal. But when I have insomnia,
mm-hmm.
then I start realizing that I start making mistakes and I can't think, thoroughly, and I start making very simple mistakes.
Okay.
Um, and that's when I get scared of. That's when I guess I have the fear of control because I'm having control of my own body, of my
Okay.
own. Typically, things that are easy and to do for me are now becoming a task or difficult, or I'm not seeing things, or I'm missing a lot of things, Or sometimes I'll be having a conversation
Mm-hmm.
and somebody will be talking to me, and at the end, well, it doesn't happen now, but it happened in the past that somebody will be telling me something, and I'll walk away and I'll think, what did they even tell me? I was just kind of like in a daze this whole time.
Right.
That's when I start knowing I'm losing control of myself.
Okay. Okay. So you kind of feel like you're on autopilot, but you're not. You're not there. You're not paying attention or
Right,
anything.
right. And
Okay.
that to me is when I say I have a fear of losing control. When I'm
Okay.
on autopilot and I don't even know what's going on like around me.
Mm-hmm.
But I, like I said, I feel like I've had control of that, and I've
Mm-hmm.
learned where my limits are. Um, with my
Right.
first go around of that experience.
Okay. So yeah, so that's what I kind of wanted to when we're looking at this inventory that I took for your anxiety inventory. What the Beck anxiety inventory does is that it scales you from 0 to 3, and then we total it. But there's certain topics that they talk about. We talked about like what you said, the nervousness, fear of the worst happening, and what a lot of these topics have when you identify them is there's different types of triggers, and that's what I'm trying to do with this assessment and show you what the assessment is that you have different sections in the sense like, okay, is the trigger something that it's just something in your cognition, whereas are you interpreting something as a thought that just comes into your mind? Are you at work and all of a sudden a thought rushes through your mind like, oh no, it can be something very random, just something very random that you have no control over, but it's just the thought. So that's more of a cognition. So it can be something like, oh my God, I think something's gonna fly through the room right now, or like a bird's gonna fly in, and it's just random. You don't have a control over it or anything. It's just a random thought, but it
Uh-huh.
strikes some type of anxiety to you. So these are all that are, fear of the worst happening. Those are just thoughts. But then there's your other ones where you're talking about right here where you put the heart pounding, or dizziness, or the numbness of the tingling, the numbness that you did put here. That's all physical. Do you feel like if your heart's pounding, are you going to get a heart attack, or are you going to, pass away or die or anything like that? And you did note those on here. So those are more like the physical realm of things that of anxiety, you know? And then there's your environment, which is if you're at work, and then someone's gonna, you're gonna have a meeting or something, and you're gonna present or something, and you're not prepared, so putting you in that situation, that's an environment of, you're gonna present, so it's all around you, so, and looking all of these of your assessment, I see that a lot of them are more of a cognition. You're more of thinking of what's going to happen in the future, or what's going to happen in the war, what's going to happen, to your finances. You know, it's a lot of forecasting, a lot of stuff. So it's kind of a pattern. Like I said, it's your finances is one of them. It's finance, but then you start thinking of what are the odds that are like what's gonna happen after that, like when something is wrong. So let me ask you this: if the stock market were to crash, the next day completely, what would you be feeling?
If I was unemployed and the stock market crashed,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would be feeling very, I would be extremely concerned. Yeah, I would probably start, getting heart pounding and the red face, the flush, and all that for sure.
Okay, like
But now,
okay, go
because
ahead.
I feel like all my everything, like I have everything, um, basically taking a dive.
Mm-hmm.
But like right now, if it were to happen, because let's say it happened in 2 weeks, right? When
Mm-hmm.
I'm working,
Okay.
I wouldn't feel it as bad because I feel like, okay, well, at least I have a different avenue of income. Like that's okay now.
Okay.
So I have one. I guess you could say I try to have several safety nets, and I feel like if all my safety nets fail at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
then I will definitely go into that whole, physical worriness,
Mm-hmm.
heart pounding,
Right. So you're
face turning red type of thing.
so what I'm understanding is like, okay, say the stock market were to fail tomorrow, um, you wouldn't be going into 100 mode. as far as like from 0 to 100, your anxiety wouldn't be 100 because you have your safety net, right?
My safety net
Right.
being my employment, into yes.
Okay. So is there ever so I mean, it's the question, right? Like, what would happen if the stock market were to, fail, and then on Monday they tell you, we're
No more work.
actually we made a mistake. Not a, oh, okay. So you're saying war?
No. Like you
Oh,
said, no more work.
oh, okay.
Like
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. Okay, so like, yeah, like no more work. Like, what would that be? Like, what mode would that be? What anxiety level would that be?
yeah, that would be very concerning anxiety level, of course. Because I
Okay.
feel like then definitely it would be a lot more stress on on relying on my wife for work. I
Okay.
mean, it would probably be into the terms of what can you pick up an extra shift type of thing.
Right. Okay.
So and I wouldn't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Okay.
but
No, yeah, I understand. I completely understand. But yeah, it would change the dynamics of where you're at right now.
correct.
Yes.
Correct. So it's just yeah, it's just a safety thing. I mean, I like I said, I don't even I don't even spend a lot of money. I don't even spend money because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's another safety net for me. I
Mm-hmm.
save because I don't know if like I just try to have a lot of safety nets. I
Right.
save and I try not to work and I'm trying to do my investments and so that I don't all of a sudden am left with nothing.
So you have a lot of safety nets, and then if they're not there, the good thing is you have the habit of saving money and not spending.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So I
Okay.
think that's why for me, I tend not to buy a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, even like my cars are old.
Okay.
Because I maintain them. Obviously, they're not in bad shape. They're in real great shape, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy new things or anything because I feel like that's also another safety net for me.
Okay. I'm sorry. I kind of get like a feedback on the
Oh,
sound. Okay. Sorry. Are you hearing that, or is it just me?
I don't hear it. I don't
Oh,
hear it.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it was a little bit on my end, but it's cleared up. I apologize.
No problem. Yeah, I don't hear. I didn't notice anything.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, then that's good. Okay, so you do have like your backups that like you said, well, not your backups, but you have the I guess you would say like the characteristic of like, I'm not a big spender. I don't spend a lot of money. I take care of my things,
Right.
so you
Like
have a lot of
I don't like I feel like most people who would say what I'm saying,
Mhm.
like about worried about their investments or worried about their job. I
Mhm.
feel like most people who have those problems are because of being in debt.
Mhm.
Whereas for me, it's the opposite. I'm not in debt. It's more like I'm concerned of not having funds for my family or for my wife or for for the future for
Mhm.
being, so, like I said, most of my friends complain that they're scared because they're in
Mhm.
debt, but for me, I'm scared because I don't want, you know, my wife to stress out about our security for the future,
Okay.
you know.
So let if you don't mind me exploring that more, I'm what I'm hearing is, you did say like other people and the general, I guess you can say the general population is what you're trying to say is that there's people with a lot of debt
Right.
and you are not in debt. So if connecting things like, are you afraid of the stock market because it's just the stock market, you're losing money, or is it because, because you don't go into debt by losing in the stock, right?
No, no,
Okay.
you're right, and it's just a loss of value. I mean, but I like my thought. You're right. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
I'm officially losing the money, but
Mm-hmm.
I get concerned. I guess because I'm always thinking like, what if for some reason I need to pull the money out for some reason? You never,
Mm-hmm.
you just never know. Um, and right now that's a bad time. I have to, what if something happens that my wife can't work, and
Mm-hmm.
then now I have to pull out my investments. I feel like, okay, well, yes, I put money in my investments, but now my investments are worth less than what I put in originally. You
Okay,
see what
let
I'm
me.
saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but let me understand just this scenario. So like, if the stock market were to, like I said again, crash and everything, the scenario that comes to your mind is, oh no, I'm gonna. What if I need this market money to pull it out for an emergency or something,
Right.
right?
So that's why, like I said, like for now with my employment working,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not worried because I can let it sit there because I have a different avenue of like, well, and that's the other thing. Like, let's say the stock markets crash tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have to pull out my money for any reason, really. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because like I said, like I even save money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, what if the stock markets crash and they stay bad for the next, I don't know, one
Mm-hmm.
year, and let's say now I have using money that I have in my savings, and then in a year I use up all my money. Let's just say, then I think, okay, now I have to get more of my stock markets, and now they're bad because the stock stayed bad for a year.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think my anxiety is what most people is not normal. Most
Mm-hmm.
people are worried because they're in debt at the moment, and
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm worried because I'm worried about what could possibly happen if everything goes wrong all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
and a year passes or something.
Right.
So I
Right.
guess I think too much to the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, and and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why. I just think that way. You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Right. So let me ask you this on when you were employed, right? And you were going through your anxiety as far as like you noticed the loop, you noticed that you were not functioning and you were on autopilot. Remember, you were saying that. Did you ever think that when you stopped working or quit or stopped working, did you ever think of also all those other scenarios like, oh, I'm not working, I'm not going to have money, or did that not cross your mind? Were you more about protecting how you were on autopilot, like your health versus that?
Yeah. So the first time when this happened, not that you mentioned it, like the first time this happened, I really wasn't prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Financially or anything,
Mm-hmm.
and so when it got to the point that I had to take a time off from work,
Mm-hmm.
it was a little bit more. It was more difficult because I wasn't prepared for it. Right, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have like my savings. I didn't have any investments. I didn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having to take time from work and not having any money from anything like that for any of those avenues
Mm-hmm.
um, made me, I guess, in a way, learn that I always have to have different avenues of money
Mm-hmm.
because this type of situation can all of a sudden happen.
Right.
And I think that's why, like, and yes, I was able to mentally and everything recover,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's what changed my way of thinking of, look, always be prepared because you never know when all of a sudden something like this might happen and you might have to take time.
Okay.
So I think that's why now this is why I prepare this way, like
Mm-hmm.
prepare for all of a sudden something happens that I need time.
Okay. So from the previous past that you've had, um, when you had this loop and you said, you were not prepared to quit, you didn't have any um, basically safety nets, right? You didn't have stocks, you didn't have, I'm guessing you were in debt maybe because you were, starting
Right.
out and everything. But yet you seem to have still survived it, correct?
Yes, I did, but that was when my wife had to pick up working extra days. She
Mm-hmm.
worked even Saturdays, like Monday through Saturday type things, and we had to really budget a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So, like
Excuse
I
me.
said, I learned a lot from that experience about how to save, how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
so that that wouldn't happen again. And it's like, yes, it was good that I was able to recover
Mm-hmm.
to go back to work and do everything, but um, I did not want to go through that experience again of having my wife have to work so hard. And it was okay, I guess, at the time because we were a lot younger.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that as time passes and we get older, we can't do the same things we used to do. So that's why I guess I took this path of having all these nets so that because I know we're not gonna be able to. My wife can't work Monday to Saturday anymore. She doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have the same energy as she used to have.
Right. So,
So
in comparing both scenarios, I'm trying to understand a little bit more of what you're saying is, at the beginning when you said that when you had the loop of that scenario where you didn't have the funds or the financial backing or the safety nets, right? And you made it through, that your wife took more shifts and everything. You had debt, you didn't pay off a lot of things. But now that you do pay off, you paid off your car, that you said you have your old cars, you don't have as much debt, and everything. It seems to be like you're still in the same boat as far as anxiety. Am I correct in inferring that?
no, I mean it's different. A lot
Okay.
more. It's a lot more different because now now when I'm not working, I don't feel so nervous because I have so many different so many different
Mm-hmm.
paths.
Okay.
Whereas before, when I wasn't working, I was number one. I had worked so hard that I got to that point
Mm-hmm.
that I couldn't think, and then number two, it just felt like, well, why did I work so hard to get to this point, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't even have anything to kind of like keep me afloat, like I that's how I felt back then.
Okay.
But now it's like, okay, now if there's no employment, it's okay. It's okay, as
Mm-hmm.
long as because you've spread yourself out. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
but if there's employment, I mean, it's nicer too. It's
Right.
nice because it's everything is good. But now I don't get so anxious because I think I uh, I know when I have to stop,
Okay.
and I know that I have a lot of different safety nets around me.
Okay. So, scenario where we're talking about the Ukraine and the war,
Uh,
you say that you feel the anxiety, but not. Is there a reason why you would not feel the anxiety? I mean, would the scenario be different now than what you've been in before with debt and everything?
um,
Because from what I'm understanding is the anxiety is high. It's higher. You're watching it on the news and how it affects you, but your circumstances is a little bit different than what it was before.
right, right. I mean, yeah, obviously, I guess my main concern is um, if if I don't know. It's more like how is this gonna grow? Is it gonna stay just there, or is it gonna get all of a sudden the United States or Europe is
Mm-hmm.
involved in conflict?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, I guess that's why I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, just to see if it's something that's gonna get bigger. Um,
Okay.
but but yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I try not to think about it too much
Mm-hmm.
because when I start thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
I might end up thinking things that are just might not even seem logical. Like I start thinking, um, for instance, here's one thing that just right now, just talking about this.
Okay.
Like I was thinking, okay, if it grows bigger and it all of a sudden it spills over and the U.S. is involved in the war and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, what if Russia starts to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we get into this kind of World War III type of thing where everybody's fighting everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what if we need to have money to get away. You know.
Yeah, no, I understand.
You know, so that's why that's you see that's what I'm saying. Like I
Hmm.
know that I'm thinking too extreme at that now,
Okay.
but and I try not to, right? I try no, that's kind of crazy. Like no, that shouldn't happen. But I start thinking like, what if? And okay, well, good thing is I have money, so I can grab my family and everybody and say, let's go. You know,
Right.
let's get out of here before it gets crazy.
Hmm.
So I guess that's why I always. Like I said, even though I'm financially stable and everything right now without debt, I always
Hmm.
think I need to have it because I need to be the one to, in a way, take care of my family if things get out of control.
Okay.
You know.
Yes. Okay. So what I want us to do is, we're already close to the end of our session, and what I want to do is I kind of want to look at this scenario a little bit more. I want to talk about what's going on with Ukraine and with you and your thought, because I'm noticing that, like, the theme, like, it kind of, the stress settles in, and then you noticed it yourself. You said it's crazy, or it shouldn't go this way. Like, I'm overthinking it, right? That's what I hear you say. And you create a scenario where you create a narrative of what's going to happen. The money's going to be there, but I have backup because there's going to be a World War III. There's going to, it creates this huge scenario, narrative.
Right.
So what I want you to kind of do is, for this homework, it's basically a daily anxiety, and we write down, I'm going to give you a form, and what you're going to look at is, I want you to kind of write out a scenario where you feel the anxiety. Like, say, if you turn on the TV and you see something in the news about, again, Ukraine, and then how do you feel at that moment when you're hearing the news of what's going on? And then notice on this form, what I want you to do is, I kind of want you to also, you write down how you're feeling and the emotion of the scale from 0 to 100. But I also kind of want you to maybe turn over the paper and then write out a narrative of what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like,
Of what's gonna happen.
right, of what's going to happen. Like, okay, Ukraine is starting a war, it's going to start a nuclear war or something, and I want you to write down, like, the whole scenario. What are you going to do? Okay, bombs are going to
Oh,
fly, and or I need to pull out money from the bank, I need to do this, like, basically a plan of what you're going to do.
right.
you know and I want us to look at it when you come back at our next session, so you can kind of look at it and see what we're working with. What you go into, what mode, and how this loop starts. you know
Right.
so I kind of want to see, just the logical thing of what you're saying, because you say yourself that it's illogical, or that's a rational thought that I go into this loop. you know so we kind of want to look at it and catch ourselves of what you, because, like I said, it's more of a, you're seeing this more of a perspective of what you're creating in your mind of the scenario.
Right.
I mean, you've experienced in the past of, this didn't happen, when I didn't work and everything in my younger years, and right now, like, I kind of find a scenario where I create this narrative and I create this scene and this scenery. So I kind of want us to look at that in the next session, and I want to look at that in our homework. So just, I don't need to see, many events, but one that really strikes you, and it doesn't have to be the news. It could be something else. It can be something with your spouse, or something that really just gets you, notice that the anxiety level is high, you know and just
Right.
see, and just, kind of look at it, and you jot down some words, or reflect on some words, and then we can look at it and see just, where we're going with that, just as part of homework of that. So I'll give you that form, I'll send it to you, and then you can have it and, look it over.
Okay.
How's that
Yeah, I'll
sound?
do that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, like if I see something that triggers me a little bit anxiety, and then kind of write what my thoughts real quick, like how really quick on it.
Yeah. Yeah, just, 0 to 100, what it is, what it feels from a scale. And then if you don't have any thoughts, that's fine, but if you notice yourself making the thought or the narrative of what you're creating, kind of jot the narrative, like, even if it's just words association with what you're creating, like, it's a war, money, debt. For example, I'm not saying it is, but just example, famine, get family out, danger, just some words that I kind of give you a
Right.
narrative. You're continuing the words, and then you
I
see
see.
what you're creating.
I,
Does
I
that,
see. I see. I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
you
see. I
get
see.
you get what I'm saying?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand now.
Okay.
Okay.
So it was good. Did you have any other questions?
No, no.
No?
No, thank you. I mean, I just didn't expect myself to all of a sudden, like, um, discuss something that I thought, like, all of a sudden just crossed my mind. That was a little. I mean, I think it was a little too extreme. All of a sudden, I don't know why. All of a sudden, I thought of
Hmm.
stuff like that, but I wasn't expecting to even
And
think that.
yeah, that's definitely something we'll explore and we'll look at it, and it's good because you're being aware of it now. You're just seeing it, you know,
Yeah,
and that
I mean,
helps out a lot.
the only part like I said, for me it was weird because sometimes I think them, but I don't say anything. I don't. I mean,
Hmm.
because this is just thoughts that come into your head, but you don't talk about. And so this was the first time I had like an extreme thought like this, and I said it out loud. So I think
Hmm.
that's the only part that was weird for me. So, but it was
Completely
good
understand.
to kind of get it out.
Right. Okay. Okay, Cesar.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna call this session, and we'll go ahead and meet up again next week. And I look forward to hearing what you're writing about. All
Okay.
right.
Thank you so much,
All
man.
right. Thank you so much. All right.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Call ended.